Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Eleazar, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, and all the rest of the distinguished guests here, including my old friend Gilad Erdan, Minister. And thank you, all of you, for coming here and joining us today for this conference. Since everybody is beginning their talks by saying, well, actually, let me just, about the person beforehand, I think it's germane to what I was going to say, which was that regarding General Ashkenazi's statement that nobody foresaw what was going to happen in Egypt. And I'm saying this not to blow my own horn, but because it's germane to what I wanted to talk about, which was that actually I did. And I did not only when the demonstrations began in Tahrir Square, but already back 12 years ago when I started writing, first in Makori Shon and then 10 years ago when I moved to the Jerusalem Post. And the reason that I and others were able to understand what was going to happen when Mubarak left power was because rather than rely on intelligence information, we were listening to what people were saying in Egypt, just like we listen to what people are saying in the Palestinian Authority, just like we listen to what people are saying all over the world, and that's, of course, all open source. And it was pretty clear that the most popular movement in Egypt is the Muslim Brotherhood, and that in the event that Mubarak were to leave power, that the Muslim Brotherhood, supported by the Egyptian people, would be empowered. This is certainly clear from the 2005 parliamentary elections in Egypt. At any rate, the reason why it's germane to what I was going to say anyway is because I wanted to talk about the distinction between what Israelis think about President Obama and what the American Jewish community thinks about President Obama. And I'm using my position as a columnist as opposed to a diplomat or a politician to talk about something that they will never mention. Steve talked about the Jerusalem Post poll that we did ahead of this conference, and one of the things that we already published in the paper was that we did, I think, a fourth or a fifth poll since Obama came into office asking Israelis whether we believe that he's pro-American, pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian or neutral. And whereas, according to some exit polls, 78% of the American Jewish community voted for Obama, according to our latest poll, 3/4 of Israelis do not believe that Obama is pro-Israel. Only 24% of Israelis do. And that is a mirror image of the American Jewish position on Obama as that was manifested in 2008. And I think that it's important, again, to talk about why this is the case. Why is it that the Israeli public has the exact opposite view of Obama as the American Jewish community? And I think the first thing that we can talk about is the fact that over the weekend on Friday he announced that he was unfreezing $192 million in American aid to the Palestinian Authority. And this was aid that was frozen by the U.S. Congress because the Palestinian Authority under Mahmoud Abbas, in complete contravention of their treaty obligations to Israel under the Oslo Accords, sought to gain international recognition of Palestinian statehood outside the framework of a negotiated peace with Israel at the UN in September, in contravention of American law as well. And he didn't seem to have a problem with that the way that the U.S. Congress did, and therefore he unfroze the aid and said that it's absolutely essential to American interests that the Palestinian Authority that doesn't recognize Israel's right to exist, that refuses now for over 3 years to negotiate with the Israeli government, to continue to receive U.S. taxpayer money. And then all of this began, I think that's just the latest thing that he's done. I think that Israeli disillusionment with Obama began in a serious way in June of 2009 when he gave a speech in Cairo to the Muslim world where he resonated, he echoed the views of jihadists, of Ahmadinejad, where he said that Israel's right to exist is anchored in the Holocaust. And then likened what the Jews went through in Europe to the plight of the Palestinians since the establishment of Israel. But I think it was the former thing that was so jarring to Israelis, because what we had then was a statement by the U.S. president that the right of the Jewish people to national self-determination in our historic homeland was not the basis upon which we established the State of Israel. This is a complete negation or non-recognition of the nature of the Jewish people and the nature of the Jewish state, the nature of the Zionist revolution by the American president, and it was a very, very shocking and hostile thing for him to have said, and to have said it in Cairo was doubly shocking and amazing. We add to that the fact that I think largely owing to the president's demand that Israel freeze all Jewish building beyond the 1949 armistice line so early as well in his presidency. It's a demand that no one had made, including the Palestinians themselves. Essentially, as Mahmoud Abbas told the Washington Post, made it impossible for him to meet with Israel because, of course, he can't be more pro-Palestinian than the U.S. president. And if the U.S. president is saying that Jews should be discriminated against, that our property rights shouldn't be recognized or respected simply because we're Jewish, then how can he possibly sit down with Benjamin Netanyahu? And that, as a precondition for negotiations, obviously there's nothing for him to talk about with the elected Prime Minister of the State of Israel. And go on and talk about his recent last year speech in May, where he said that the basis for a negotiated agreement between Israel and the Palestinians are the indefensible 1949 armistice lines, which if Israel were to contract to within them, it couldn't defend itself. And on to him telling Israel, Jewish American leaders, to speak to Israel and say that we should search our souls to understand why peace is not existing between us and the Palestinians, and said nothing, for instance, to Mahmoud Abbas when he presided over the celebration of the 50th birthday of Dalal Mughrabi, a Fatah mass murderer who conducted the 1977 attack on the bus on the coastal road in Israel, in which 37 Israelis were murdered. We go on to Turkey. Deputy Foreign Minister Dani Ayalon mentioned that after Operation Cast Lead, the Turks lowered their diplomatic representation in Israel. And they haven't returned their ambassador, to the best of my knowledge, or they returned him and now he's gone again. The American government has consistently stated that Israel should apologize to Turkey for its act of aggression against the State of Israel by sponsoring the IHH Mavi Marmara terror ship that went in contravention of international law to provide aid and comfort to an internationally recognized terrorist organization, Hamas. This is a shocking thing. Israel should apologize to Turkey? Aside from that, just this week it was reported in the Turkish media that Turkey has blocked Israeli participation in upcoming NATO exercises. Where's the United States? Where's the United States reining in Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan to say, how dare you, don't you dare, you are a NATO member, you cannot be blocking Israeli participation in NATO exercises. You want to be a member of NATO? Then support the Western alliance, including a strong Israel as an integral member of and the front line of that Western alliance. Let's just go to Iran for a second. You know, you can think anything that you want about what should be done, what shouldn't be done, but clearly it is odd that the American president was fighting the U.S. Congress that was attempting to force him to place more stringent sanctions in Iran, and that today when he is conducting negotiations with the Iranians, he has already said, according to the media, that he is willing for them to have continued uranium enrichment activities. This is not a credible statement of somebody who claims to have Israel's back. And here I just want to mention, you know, it was interesting, during the Democratic primaries in 2007, 2008, I found myself in the United States. I think it was the summer of '07. And there was a big fight for the Jewish vote in Pennsylvania between Clinton and Obama. And Clinton wanted to make sure that the Jews of Pennsylvania knew that she was more pro-Israel than Obama was. And so she said that if Israel is nuked by Iran, that the United States under her presidency will nuke Iran. And this made headlines and everything. And I was interviewed, I think my one and only time, by NPR. And they asked me what I thought. And I said, well, from where I'm sitting, that's not a very comforting statement. What do I care? But the point is, what she was saying was, when we're first on the list, we'll take care of it. Israel is clearly first on the target list of the Iranians, and therefore, our ability to defend ourselves should not be undercut. Intelligence information that we transfer to our allies, the United States of America, should not consistently be finding its way to the front page of the newspapers. And so on and so forth. And finally, just to go back to where I started, which was Egypt, you know, again, it was clear to everybody that was listening to the Egyptian people and paying attention to what they were saying about who they are and what they want to be, that when Mubarak goes, if it's done certainly in a non-orderly fashion, then we're going to see a reawakening of the Southern Front. And what did we see Washington do when all of the Israeli military establishment, security establishment, as well as the commentariat, I can say as a member of, were saying, don't push Mubarak out. Mubarak has to go. And what do we see now? Yes, we need immediate presidential elections. Well, who's going to win them? Just guess. This is not the way that you act when you want to ensure the stability and peace of the Middle East. This is not the way that you act when you have Israel's back. And it's, by the way, not the way that you act when you have the best interests of American national security in mind, because let me tell you, unlike what certain members of the Obama administration have said, the Muslim Brotherhood is not a secular organization. This is a progenitor not only of Hamas, but of Al-Qaeda. Now, my last statement is, you know, when we go back to public opinion and we go back to what is in the hearts and minds of the people of Israel, the people of the United States, or the people of Egypt, or the people of Syria, wherever it happens to be, you know, one of the things that the Obama administration did at the time, under the Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel, told, I think it was Jeff Goldberg from The Atlantic, but I'm not sure, that essentially by giving the cold shoulder to the elected government of Israel, that they expected to see happen in 2009, I think it was, 2010, the same thing that happened when the Clinton administration gave similar treatment to Prime Minister Netanyahu the first time that he was in office. And much to their amazement, the meaner that they've been to the elected prime minister of the only democracy in the Middle East, where the results of the election are the result of the actual voting booth activities of the citizens and not the electorate, the ballot counters, is that Netanyahu and his grip on power has become strengthened, not weakened. And the reason for that, is the reason why 3/4 of Israelis, 76%, don't perceive Obama as being pro-Israel, because we tried everything that they're telling us to do. And we got Camp David in 2000, and we got the Palestinian terror war in the years that followed that saw 1,500 Israelis butchered in our streets. We tried to leave and just hand over the keys when we were gone. And we got missiles raining down on all the cities in the south, and now we have Hamas, which purportedly has the capacity to even send missiles over to Tel Aviv, which, by the way, is what Ariel Sharon said when he said that the fate of Netzarim is the fate of Tel Aviv. And what did we get in return? We got the Goldstone report. We got delegitimized. We got isolation. So that when people keep telling us to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, we say, no, actually, you know, sir, that's what Albert Einstein referred to as insanity. And guess what? We're not crazy. So I think that it's very important when we try to understand what's happening in Israel, what moves the Israeli people, we realize that we are completely committed to maintaining our security. Of course we want peace. There's no Israeli that doesn't want peace, but we're not willing to endanger ourselves in order to get somebody to pat us on our back and say, good work. We have more at stake than smiles from foreigners telling us whatever we think we should be hearing at any particular minute of the day. The Israeli people understand that, and I hope that we have the kind of discussion here today in the conference, and that we continue a discussion as we move forward with our American Jewish brethren and with the global community as a whole to understand why it is that we feel the way that we do and what matters to us, because Israel is the front line of the free world, and as we go, so goes everybody else. Thank you very much.